Hello, and welcome back to How to Succeed in Your Next Job Interview. I'm Patrick Munoz.
And I'm Chris Schulte.
Today's video, the day of the warm up. So, the day of is super important. We've talked about all the preparation, but now what about the day of the interview? What can you do to set yourself up for success? We have three ideas for you. The first is practice with someone in the morning, with a loved one or a friend. Chris, talk to us about this idea.
Well, I always like to encourage the young men and women that I'm working with to, over their breakfast, while they're eating their Cheerios, to practice their answers. And if you're lucky enough to have a friend or loved one with you, you can get feedback from them, do it right to them. If not, just get going to yourself. Just talk to yourself and see how it goes. Or even in the shower. I do a lot of my best practicing in the shower.
And if you're driving to the interview, if it's in person, start to answer some mock questions for yourself out loud. Just speak out loud so you have some answers and listen to yourself in terms of the logical answers you're giving. Or if you're going to be doing this online, pop your computer open, start to record yourself giving these mock answers. Now, the interview could be first thing in the morning, so give yourself some extra time to prepare so that your mouth and your mind are all working together.
Also, see how your eyes are. Are you establishing eye contact, particularly if it's going to be a Zoom? Just see what your eyes are doing. I worked with a young man the other day, and he did have kind of wandering eyes. So we worked on that. Doesn't mean you have to stare at the screen, of course, or stare at the image of the other person who's interviewing you. But you do have to come back, return to them pretty regularly so that they feel you are in constant connection with them.
And by actually doing some practice beforehand, you'll really be aware of that. Our second idea that's so key is interact with other people the day of the interview before you go in so that your interviewer is not the first person you're interacting with. Now, of course, if it is an online interview and it is scheduled for the first thing in the morning, that's a little bit challenging. So in that case, Chris, what are some ideas for that?
Well, even if you're talking, again, it goes along with that first point that you are talking out loud. I was even thinking sometimes you might say, for example, if you know that you have to work on being louder sometimes, that sometimes your voice gets a little too soft, practice being louder. Boy, these Cheerios are good. I think I'll have some more milk in mine. It sounds silly, but that's exactly what actors do. We're bigger, we're bolder, we're louder, so that when we get on stage, then of course it adds a little bit to our performance. The same thing happens when you're preparing for your interview. Be big, be bold, be resolute, and then when the interview comes, you're warmed up and ready to go.
How wonderful to be warmed up and ready to go, which brings us to our third point. Emotionally prepare. We've talked about the physical preparation and the mental preparation, speaking, talking to someone, or talking out loud to yourself if there's nobody you can practice with. Emotionally prepare so that you are on your own side. Going into an interview is an unnatural place to be. It's not the first thing that you're going to think of. Let me talk to somebody I don't know about myself. So, of course, we've talked about reframing it as a conversation. How can you emotionally prepare for yourself? You can do that by using your imagination, creating a wonderful mindset for yourself, something that you really enjoy doing in your life, thinking of a happy memory that brings a smile to your face, or maybe a happy memory that brings a little bit of a laugh to yourself, so that you walk in with that energy. Chris, what else can you do to emotionally prepare so that you really have yourself on your own side? You're showing up as your best self.
I really like that you mentioned you want to be on your own side, because as we're all aware of, the critical voice is there hovering. And so we have to listen and say, what kind of voices? What's going on in my head this morning? Am I positive about myself? Am I going to do a great job? And do I feel that? Or am I worried and, oh, I'm going to say something wrong, I know it, and all that. So you really got to get inside your head and say, what's going on in there, and change it. Just like Patrick said, think of good times in the past, wonderful vacations, times that you succeeded at something, and you can just feel that warmth and that glow coming. And you can imagine the difference that makes between someone who does that, prepares that way, and someone who's just nervous and afraid they're going to say something wrong.
It may sound silly, right? I'm going to use my imagination to think of these happy events, but it works. Give it a try. And that way, that energy you come in with actually sort of vibrates off of you. It really, when you think about that, whenever you enter a room or whenever anybody else enters a room, you feel that energy change. You may not think of it consciously, but it does. So use these exercises to prepare in the morning by actually going over your interview with a friend or a loved one, or practice it by yourself if you haven't. B, interact with somebody the day of. Again, just use yourself or your computer as the best friend to practice with. And finally, get yourself in that emotional place where you are on your own side, energetic, positive, enthusiastic, and ready to go. We hope you enjoyed this video. We will be back soon for our next video on how to succeed in your next job interview.